Okay, I was gone last class. Obviously, I'm gone today, but I want you to be able to see me. So, what we're going to do is go through um, our Grendel assignment from 2 class periods ago. So, that would be the Grendel assignment. Some of you typed it up, some of you hand wrote it over the 2 chapters we read of Grendel. Okay, so you need this 2 chapters and the assignment. Okay, so hopefully you got that back from the guest teacher. If I didn't get one from you, then I'm hoping you still have it or you still needed to finish it. So what we're going to do today is actually go over the assignment itself, all of the questions, and then talk about what you read last class with Grendel's mother and the battle with Grendel's mother, because you'll need to understand everything we've read up so far in order to start the assignment towards the end of class today. Okay, so follow along in this presentation. If you got questions, you're going to have to email them to me, and then we'll go from there. Okay, here we go. On your piece of paper, write down any new information that I'm going to go through and explain. Or if the information you have down is incorrect, or like needs some revision, or you need to add to it, do so that when I go through and grade these, you'll get the full points for them. Okay, so the purpose is to get the best grade possible, but really is to know and make sure you have a good understanding of everything we've done in Beowulf up until this point, including Grendel. Okay, so question 1 starts out asking you about fate or free will. What's your options? You choose which one, you tell me in a paragraph. I don't care if it takes you 1 sentence, that's 9 lines, or it's 8 different sentences. A paragraph is a paragraph. You have to be able to explain me what your choice is. Is it fate or free will that drives your life? Okay, and as long as you do that and you explain to me and I have enough evidence to read, you're good to go. Okay? Here's a little cartoon, Calvin and Hobbes. Right? In this cartoon, Calvin says he wants to be a fatalist. He believes in fate now. And then as you go along and read the cartoon, all events are preordained and unalterable. Whatever will be, will be. That way, if anything bad happens, it's not my fault, it's fate. Pretty good way to go through life. However, Hobbes, being the jokester he is, trips Calvin. Calvin does not like that and states, that's not fate. Because Hobbes tells him, too bad you were fated to do that. So this is kind of making fun at somebody who is saying fate is real. That's not to say that it isn't, but in this instance, Hobbes would be somebody who believes in free will, Calvin, somebody who believes in fate. So just like all of us, we're going to have our own beliefs, whether you are Calvin or you are Hobbes. Fate goes like this. No matter what you do in life, all the different patterns and turns and twists you can take backwards or forwards, left or right, you will always end up at the same point. There is nothing you can do to change that. You will always end up there. Free will, on the other hand, has multiple paths and choices. You turn left one day, you turn right the next day. Depending on where you go, it's going to end up being, this is where I end up. So you have multiple destinations that you could reach depending on the choices you make. Sometimes you want to go one way, sometimes you make a decision to go the other. It doesn't matter. You're choosing. So there's nothing controlling you. So as long as you chose one of those 2 ways and explain what you believe, you're going to get the points for question number 1. Question number 2, everything into A, B, C, D, E, and F are all going to be over the poem Invictus. So we're going to start out with the 3 words that you should have come up with and found either online or using on your phone or whatever. The Latin word Invictus. What are 3 words that mean Invictus? Unconquerable should be your first one, or unconquered. unsubdued, and invincible. Those are the three. Those are the three we're looking for. So as long as you have those three, you're good to go. If you don't have those three, write them on your new piece of paper or make the corrections on your previous assignment. Make sure you have those three. 2B, ask you to define the 4 words that are found in the poem. First word, clutch. This is not an automotive part. This is not Kobe Bryant making that last second 3-point shot for the win. That's not the clutch we're looking for. How was clutched used in the poem? The line states, in the fell clutch of circumstance. Clutch is talking about grabbing, holding, gripping, clasping, seizing with your hands. Okay, so nothing to do with I popped the clutch or clutch shot. No, it's not like that. Bludgeoned. What does it mean to bludgeon? Okay, bludgeon is the act of hitting, clubbing somebody, beating somebody, bashing somebody. Okay, it's also a tool itself. So you could literally bludgeon somebody with a bludgeon, like you could club somebody with a club. Okay, so it's 2 things, but how it's used in the poem is meaning to beat. Okay. Third word, wrath. That should be pretty simple. Anger, rage, fury, okay, excessive hate, wrath. Fourth word, menace. Dennis the Menace, awesome movie. Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood, awesome movie. Star Wars The Phantom Menace, probably an awesome movie. Menace, threat, danger, hazard. Okay? Doesn't mean you're evil. It just means you usually cause some sort of trouble. Threat, hazard. Okay? You got to be able to understand those 4 things so that we can understand the poem in general, which is the next part. Question 2C asks us to look at each stanza, go through, and explain each one. There are multiple interpretations of poems. So what I say is not necessarily going to be what you have down. So I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to explain my views and how I view this poem because you might have a completely different view. So rather, I'm going to say some things that students have said in the past. If you feel like yours are on the right track, awesome. If you feel like I don't have anything like that and you're worried, write some new things down. And then when I go through and grade it, if yours is way off, but you wrote the new stuff down, you still get the points. Okay? First stanza. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. Night equals bad things. Black, bad things. Pit, capitalized. Where would be a place that is down low, that is dark and evil? How about hell? From pole to pole, meaning from one end of the spectrum to the other, from the North Pole to the South Pole. Somewhere, everything is terrifying. So wherever this person in this poem is at, they feel like they're in hell. But it goes on to state that they thank whatever gods may be for their unconquerable soul. So no matter what they're going through in this hell, they have an unconquerable soul. Now what's interesting to note, whatever gods may be, this person in the poem does not have one specific religion that they're following. They're not saying Christ Jesus. They're not saying a specific God. So it makes us believe, does this person believe in a certain religion or is he agnostic? Which means he believes in a higher power, but not knowing which one. Okay? You might have something a little different. Other students have stated that they saw this as Grendel, the night, the pit where Grendel lives, his cave. His unconquerable soul would kind of be ironic because he has been killing men, but then along comes Beowulf. So there's some different things you can look at. If you've got something different, you're not sure if it's going to work for the points, write some of this other stuff down, and then when I go through and grade it, we'll see what it's like. Okay, so that's the first stanza. Second stanza. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. So we go back and we look at the word clutch, grasp. So this person is in the grasp of circumstance, but they have not winced nor cried aloud. So when they are held and gone through certain things, they have not winced, they have not cried. Think about that in your life. When have you had to go through things and it sucked, but you didn't cry about it, you didn't whine about it, you just fought through it? Because then it goes on to say that this person was bludgeoned, beaten, and beaten so bad, he's bloodied. But does he quit? No. Because the final word gives us the answer. Unbowed. Okay? So this stanza is really saying and repeating the first part. He's got this unconquerable soul. He has been through some stuff. But now the beatings he is taking, okay, he's going through them and continuing to fight. He's physically beat, but mentally and his soul unconquerable, unbowed. Third stanza. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. Think about a place that is full of wrath, anger, a place that is full of tears, sadness, and everything in between. Looms but the horror, notice it's capitalized, of the shade, more darkness. Yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. So beyond this place of wrath and tears, so past the place where I feel anger and sadness, looms but the horror of the shade. Horror is capitalized, just like pit was capitalized because it probably means hell. Horror is probably going to be the devil, because we have Grendel a demon, we have Beowulf the light, so looms the devil of the shade, makes sense, the pit, the black, out of night, and yet the menace of the years, so as we move along, shall find me unafraid. Now if we go back and think about what does everybody have to fight through, what is going to happen after a bunch of years? What is the one thing we all have to consider and we all have to deal with? Maybe it's not the devil, maybe it's death. Everybody's going to have to deal with that. So this person is saying their life, the menace of the years, their life is going to meet up with the horror or death, the Grim Reaper. But yet this person is unafraid. The fourth stanza finishes it off. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. So we talked about, some people asked, what does straight mean? Because it's not meaning like straight line. It's supposed to be a straight line. Straight is a what? Geography term. The Strait of Gibraltar. The Bering Strait. What are those? It's a path. So it doesn't matter the path. It doesn't matter how charged with punishments the scroll. What do you scroll? It's a piece of paper. Hear ye, hear ye. You write on them laws. So it doesn't matter the path you take or how charged with punishments. So it doesn't matter what route you take or the stuff you go through. In the end, you are what? And the last two lines are pretty simple. So if we look at all four of these stanzas, question 2D is asking us the overall meaning of the poem. So if you look at all four of them, in general, what is this poem about? And I bet you can figure it out. So I'm not even going to talk about it. 2E then brings up the fact that now we want to talk about Mr. William Ernest Henley. He had tuberculosis, he lost one of his legs, had to be amputated, and almost lost the second one. That prompted him to write Invictus. So, how does this relate to his life and what he went through? I bet you can figure that out too. Moving on. 2F is then asking us, how do we relate Beowulf or Grendel to this poem? Because remember, we're still looking at Beowulf and Grendel. How does this poem relate to either character, to either work? Okay, and there are going to be some connections in here that you can see. We kind of already talked about that maybe Grendel, who lives in the night in the pit of cave, which is kind of like hell. It's black. That's Grendel. Easy connection. Think about who clutches who. Grendel grabs Beowulf. Beowulf grabs Grendel. Right, they're in that clutch. Who winces? Who cries aloud? Who doesn't wince or cry aloud? Who is beaten? Who is bloody? Who doesn't quit? Who is the devil? Or death? Or the Grim Reaper? Okay? There's a lot of things that you can make connections to. In the end, is Beowulf or Grendel master of their fate, captain of their soul? And that's the question. So you've got to figure out, using evidence from the poem, who does this poem relate to the most? Or who do you think it's really written for or about in connection to Beowulf or Grendel? Okay, so make sure you have text evidence from the poem. Without text evidence, it's going to be a 0. So if you don't have text evidence, let me, there. Stop the video, look at the poem, write down your text evidence. If you got it, move on. Question 3A and 3B are over the article about genes versus the brain. Alright, that was, I don't know, a couple class periods ago, so almost a week ago. So just to refresh your memory, we're just going to go over the two questions, and I'll kind of talk about what makes each one the right answer according to the article. So, question 3A is pretty much asking you, according to the article, what is it that has a greater influence on the choices you make? Is it your brain, or is it your genes, your DNA, your genetic makeup? So what influences the choices you make? The answer is the brain. There's only one right answer, according to the article. May not be correct, but according to the article, they say the brain is more influential in making the choices than your DNA. Sounds like it would make sense, but now we got to look at the article more of what's the article telling us. They did the experiment. 70-year-old men who were losing their hearing, losing their sight, energy levels were dropping, cognitive ability, able to perform tasks was slower. They were getting older. That's what happens. We kind of deteriorate. They took these men and placed them in an environment like they were living in during their 20s. So they started listening to the same music they listened to when they were in their 20s. They lived in the same home style. They had everything they had when they were in their 20s. Lived there for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden they started to notice, the scientists, that these men, their vision was improving, hearing was improving, cognitive tasks were easier for them to complete. They started to boost energy levels. It's almost like these men were being transformed back into younger versions of themselves. How is that possible? No medication, nothing was done except putting them in that environment. How can you explain that? The brain. The simple fact, by putting them back in this environment, the men changed things that we usually think of are set by genetics. Okay? We can't change our eye color, can't change our hair color. That's genetics. But what this article is saying is that eventually, maybe we will be able to. Have you ever heard of something called the placebo effect? You might know what that is. If you don't know what the placebo effect is, I guess I'll tell you. If you've got 100 people who are suffering from, let's say, depression, half of the group is told by a doctor, here's your medication, take it, you'll do fine. So that's group A. Group B, doctor says, here's your medication, take it, you'll be fine. They both come back, both groups A and B report, wow, I feel better. This is really working. Maybe not everybody, but some people, majority. Turns out group A didn't even get medication. They got a sugar pill, which does nothing. The other group got real medication. It worked. How can the people who get a sugar pill, a worthless thing, come back and state, hey, we feel better? That's the placebo effect. Your brain is telling you, I'm getting something, and it sort of tricks your body. Okay? So think about the power the brain has over us in terms of changing our vision from worse to better, hearing worse to better, energy levels, cognitive abilities, and able to fight off certain symptoms. It doesn't mean you can give somebody a sugar pill and be like, hey, this should cure your cancer, but it does allow the brain to think, hey, this should help, awesome, and then does it really help? Okay, so you've got to watch out for those facts. You can Google placebo and stuff like that later on if you want to, but that's the gist of the article. Okay, question 3B. 3B is asking us, what does this study have to do with Beowulf or Grendel? Okay, that's either the poem, any of the movies Beowulf, or the 2 chapters we've read from Grendel. What does that study about the brain being more important than genes have to do with Beowulf or Grendel? I'm not going to tell you that. This is one of the questions that you probably understand. You may not feel comfortable about your answer, but maybe you should ask another classmate to double check to see what they put. Okay. This is a hard question. How does this relate to Beowulf or Grendel? Don't overthink it, don't overanalyze it. Okay? But how does the brain controlling us connect with Beowulf or Grendel? Okay? You think about it. Question 4 is now going to relate straight to Grendel, the 2 chapters we read. Okay, so we'll go through each one. Some are just gonna be like, boom, here are the answers. Others, there's gonna be some similarities. Others, there might be multiple answers too. So depending on what you have, if you were wrong, again, change it. If you're not sure if you're quite right, put the new answers down so you get the points for it. Okay, so question 4A, page 151. Why does Grendel believe Beowulf and his soldiers, or what does Grendel believe brought Beowulf and his soldiers to Daneland? Okay, is it fate or free will? Either of those 2 options are good answers. So there's not a right or a wrong. You just have to provide the text evidence to prove which one you are on. Easiest one, fate. Okay, Grendel states he thinks by somebody moving icebergs, by certain water paths, something got Beowulf to Grendel's homeland. Honoring the water, icebergs moved. There's your evidence to prove that Grendel believes fate brought Beowulf to him. Okay, that's probably the easiest one. Free will, a little more complicated. On page 151, it says that the soldiers, Beowulf soldiers, were battle dressed. Okay, soldiers aren't born into fighting. Aren't born into being in the military service. You're born into royalty, but you're not born into the military. So by them choosing to be soldiers and thus saying we need to fight our enemies, these soldiers chose to come and fight Grendel. Okay, so free will is more about the choice of being a soldier and coming to fight. That's where you get your evidence for your free will. So as long as you've got evidence for whatever you chose, you're good to go. Question 5 or 4B on 151 or 155 asks when Beowulf arrives to Daneland by boat and talks with the Coast Guard, does Grendel understand why Beowulf has arrived? Yes, that's the only way you can put it. Okay, yes is the only answer. Grendel understands Beowulf has come to fight and probably kill him. Okay, and Grendel knows this because he states, "Come ahead, make your play, do your worst." He knows why Beowulf is here. Easy peasy. Question 4C. Explain the relationship between the Danes and Grendel according to Grendel. Okay, and you have to think of the perspective from Grendel. Okay, so not our perspective, but according to Grendel, from his point of view, what is his relationship like with the Danes? And you have to think about a couple of things. On page 159, let me see. Nope, 158. There's a couple different pieces of evidence. Okay, 158 it says, if I murdered the last of the Skildings, what would I live for? I would have to move. So Grendel knows he has to keep some Danes alive, so they keep populating his home, so that he can continue to feast on them. If he kills them all, he will have to move. So the relationship is very much, you support me, I eat you, thank you very much. Okay. Then it goes on later, though, to talk about how he has a friend, Orc. So now we've got a sense of Grendel's relationship is a friendly one with the Danes, but yet he still has to eat and consume them to survive. And then a little later on in that page 159, that's okay, so that one I already said for. On 159, it says that he has respect for the priests, even though he doesn't believe in religion. And for old time's sake, for the old priest's honor, I would have to kill the stranger, and for the honor of Hrothgar's Thanes. So now Grendel is stating that he's got a good relationship with the Danes, even though he eats them to survive. So in Grendel's mind, this is a very good relationship, give and take on both ends. That's not right from our point of view, though. We know Grendel is just take, no give and take. He's dominating the relationship and getting everything from it. The benefits are his and his only. He doesn't realize the terror and what he is causing for these Danes, because in his mind, it's okay. Grendel, a little weird. He's not going to see with the clarity that we have. So the answer is going to be, from Grendel's point of view, it is a good relationship. Our point of view, nah. Grendel's, yeah. Okay. Question 4D, pages 160 to 162. Grendel thinks that Beowulf is preposterous and insane. Why? Look on those pages. It tells you. There's one story that Beowulf is talking about. Grendel says that's preposterous, that's insane. You can figure that one out. Question 4E. 3 instances of Grendel being afraid of Beowulf. There are many instances in this chapter 11 that show Grendel is afraid or doubtful that he should fight Beowulf. You got to give me 3 with the text evidence. You can find those as well. For F, 3 instances of Grendel having human characteristics. Now think about what human characteristics are. All right, he doesn't look like a human. He's like the hairy squirrel thing. Okay, but what characteristics does he have of a human? And you got to be able to show that with text evidence. So look for things like certain emotions, the fact that he can think, and not just think about I'm hungry and I need to eat. That's more instinctual. He can think and is very observant about other people. Think about how he lives and how he communicates in this chapter. Think about what he or how he views life. Okay, there are a lot of things that make Grendel in this chapter very human. You got to give us 3 examples with the text evidence. I believe that is it for chapter 11. So, chapter 12, 5a. Why does Beowulf make Grendel sing of walls as he slams his head into one? What could the walls symbolize? Walls. We build them for protection. What else do we build them for? Structures. The mead hall. Think about what this wall could symbolize. And this wall in general could symbolize many things. Some things that students have said in the past. The wall symbolizes Christianity or a certain pagan god, okay, that these Danes believe in, that are going to stop Grendel. So kind of like the light versus darkness. This wall was built by the Danes, therefore it has either Christian values or pagan values, and therefore Grendel cannot pass through it. So the wall stops Grendel. So the wall symbolizes some sort of religious being. 2, people have said the wall symbolizes fate. We talked about your path. If you believe in fate, and Grendel might, depending on your view of it, if he believes in fate, then he will only end up at one point in his life, and that's death. So the wall is literally the end of the line for him, his death. So the wall is going to stop him from going anywhere else. We've had people say the wall represents humanity because humans build walls. You know, there aren't many other things, animals, creatures that build walls except for building a certain structure for home, for survival, for shelter. They built this hall as a mead hall and used the walls for kind of a party environment. So humans built this as a place to congregate. So therefore then the humans are the one that are destroying Grendel. A student stated that the wall could be literally Beowulf. Like maybe Grendel is just hallucinating these things, and the wall itself is actually Beowulf's fist, like beating on Grendel. Because if you think about it, the wall is being used to smash his head into, so it could almost just be like it's actually Beowulf punching Grendel over and over and over again, and Grendel is just kind of hallucinating with the brain damage. Obviously, he doesn't know what's going on. So there's multiple views. You might have another symbol. That's fine. You just got to explain it. Okay? Okay. 5b. Grendel dies. Loses his arm, runs back, falls down, almost passes out, looks around, and there are these animals. And the last thing he says, poor Grendel's had an accident, so may you all. What do you think his last words mean? Think about the word accident. Where else in these 2 chapters has Grendel said accident? What does he mean when he says accident? And why would he wish the rest of the people or things, animals, so may you all have an accident? What does that mean? Make sure your explanation ties those things together. And it says you got to be a few sentences, so you don't have to explain the whole paragraph. What do you think that means? Okay, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it means, because I have no idea exactly what it means. So you would have the same ideas as me. Okay, just make sure you explain what you think. Question 5C asks you to show 2 instances that prove Grendel is a child, not an adult, but is more like a child. One of them is that he cries out "Mama" multiple times. He wants his mama. That's a child. You find a second one. Think you're going to go on that. Question 5D, 3 instances that show Grendel is insane. And there are way more than 3. There are probably 10 that you could come up with that could show that Grendel mentally is not all there. Okay, and I'll give the one easy one most people come up with, and that's the hallucination that Beowulf has wings and is breathing fire. Whether that's an angel or a dragon, but he is hallucinating. So there's one. You got to find 2 more for a total of 3. And once you have that, you're good to go on those. Finally, question 6. Grindy. Bull. That's a messed up slide right there. You're looking at Grendel in 4 different categories. From the poem, from the movie with the real actors, the animated movie CGI, and the 2 chapters from Grendel by John Gardner. You've got to be able to tell me differences between all of them. I already gave you one about the physical. Let's see if I can write. Okay. Physical. Okay, so that was my example, was the physical. What does each Grendel look like in each 4 of those different mediums? What are 3 other things that you could talk about, or did you show are different between them? Some students in the past have talked about intelligence. How is each Grendel shown? How intelligent are they? Motivation. What motivates Grendel to kill or do things? Each one kind of has a different motive. What is the lifestyle like? How human do they seem? There's a lot of different things you can look at. So you have to have 3 different topics to go through and look at differences. Okay? You should have 3. The similarities, probably going to have a little more, but I'm only looking for a total. I already gave you 2. Violent temper, physically strong. You could probably have a total of 5. So if you come up with 3 more, you'll be good to go for the similarities. But I'm more interested in the differences. So whatever topics you come up with, make sure they all deal with Grendel. Okay. If you have questions about anything else in the story or in this assignment, make sure you note it down or you email me. But leave this. You're going to turn this back in before you leave so that I can come and get them over the weekend to grade them. Okay, so I need you to have these finished and put back in the tray before you leave class. Okay. So now we talk about what you did last class when I was gone. I had you guys read Grendel's mother and then the battle with Grendel's mother. This picture, one interpretation of what Grendel's mother would look like. She lives, well, in a lake, but to get to that lake, you've got to swim underwater, and Beowulf does, for many hours, again showing his physical prowess. She's in a place that's where a lot of battles have taken place. There's a lot of death. There's also a lot of gold, so there's some treasure there as well. So Beowulf eventually learning about what Grendel's mother does, because she comes up on land, goes to the mead hall, steals, kidnaps, pretty much is going to kill one of Hrothgar's most trusted advisors. It's not Unferth. I don't think anybody would care if it was Unferth. But Grendel's mother steals one of the men, takes her back to the cave. He dies. And Beowulf, knowing, hey, I kind of started this mess by killing Grendel, but I was also promised that this was going to be the only thing. Says, hey, all right, I'll do it. Hrothgar throws in, I'll give you some treasure. Cool, thanks. So Beowulf goes down, finds Grendel's mother, which that's all she's called. We don't get a name for her. It's just Grendel's mother. Um, and let's see. His sword does nothing. Kind of like hitting stone with it. Okay, makes a noise, clanks off. So he's like, oh crap. He finds big sword, gigantic sword, made by giants, in the den where Grendel's mother lives. So she probably killed something, dragged him back, had a sword on him. So now Beowulf grabs this big old sword and goes, hey ya! Straight takes out Grendel's mother. Done. Gold, treasure. This picture here has Grendel, no arm, laying in the corner, skulls, helmets, Beowulf straight doing his thing. What's new? Okay, so again, we've got a second hurdle. Beowulf jumps over this hurdle a little easier than the first one. The whole Grendel thing lasts a while. Grendel's mother, short, takes her out. Nothing else to worry about. Okay, no dad, no grandma, no other people. It's it. This is over. Okay, so where we're at now, 2 hurdles have been cleared. Grendel's mother. There's 1 left, but we're not going to do anything or get to that point just yet. Okay, we're going to do a project first, then finish Beowulf with his last hurdle. So what's the project? You are going to take what you know from Beowulf from the very beginning to where Beowulf kills Grendel's mother, and you're going to turn it into a children's book. Yeah, don't care. I can't hear your complaints anyways. Okay, children's book. You're gonna have to take something that's legitimately rated R in a sense. The Beowulf, the violence, the sexual jokes, everything we've seen that is inappropriate for children, and you're gonna have to turn that into something that's appropriate for children. Okay, so now we got to look at what children. Okay, so I'll give you options, but they're not really good ones. You're going to have to create this children's book electronically, so you can use PowerPoint, Prezi, animation stuff, comic books, any way you want to do it. You could draw, you could take pictures from online, you can, whatever you want to use, you're making a children's book. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. That's it. You have to pick one of those grades and gear your children's book towards that grade. This is going to be a little difficult. That's the reason we're doing it. If you choose to write a book about Beowulf's adventures, up until where we're at right now, for a fourth grader, you better Google or do some research on what a fourth grade children's book looks like. How many words? Because it's going to be a lot different than if you do a kindergarten book. Okay? You're going to have to make sure that it is G-rated. You don't want to have a picture of Beowulf ripping Grendel's arm off and beating him over the head with it. Okay, some 5-year-old's going to run home to his mom and cry. You don't want that. Okay, so you're going to have to take the concept of Beowulf and you're going to have to tone it down for these kids. You get the rest of class today to research what grade do you want to focus on and how you're going to set this up. And then we're going to spend the next 2 class periods actually working on this children's book. Okay, so it shouldn't be any homework as long as you know what grade you want to focus on and how you're going to tone it down. Okay, so what you need to do is finish the work if you need to for Grendel, the assignment. If you need to reread any parts of Grendel Mother or Grendel Mother Battle with Beowulf, do so. Make sure I have your summaries for the section on Grendel's Mother and the battle with Grendel's Mother. And then start thinking about and writing ideas down and researching children's books for whatever grade level you want to make. Okay? If you have questions over this, shoot me an email. Get on Edmodo and send me a note. Do something. Okay? We will spend at least the next 2 class periods working on the children's book though. Okay. Bye.